Hello and welcome to yet another session of our How About Some Marketing webinars. Today is Thursday, February 29th, a day that happens every 4 years, but I'm not sure exactly how many Thursdays February 29th happen, how often do they happen. Nevertheless, what better thing you have to do at 7 p.m. than watching this amazing session? My name is Emanuel, and I'm an SEO and digital marketing consultant from Toronto. I like to help small to medium-sized businesses gain more exposure, gain more revenue from search, from social, and from paid advertising. And I've created How About Marketing, which is a hub. I like to call it a hub. And we aim to help small to medium sized businesses to become big businesses through education, coaching, and mindset reframing. How About Marketing is the go to hub for straightforward, no nonsense marketing guidance, and we focus on clear, actionable strategies and resources designed for everyday needs of small to medium sized businesses. No jargon, no overly complicated tactics, just effective marketing insights that you can apply directly to your business. So if you haven't done so, please go ahead to howaboutsomemarketing.com and subscribe to the newsletter because that's the newsletter that you want to be subscribed to. Have you ever seen a stronger argument? I don't think so. Now, I would like to introduce my partner and permanent guest, Joachim Koch, to tell us a few words about who he is and what he does before we moving on to today's topic.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks for having me. Joachim Koch, founder, CEO of Aspiration Marketing. You find us on the web at www.aspiration.marketing. We're a digital marketing agency based in Toronto. We have resources in the US, we have resources in Europe, and focus on growing businesses, technology startups predominantly, technology scale-ups, where we are a HubSpot partner, where we do web design, where we do inbound marketing and SEO, and also paid advertising.
Excellent. Excellent. Moving on to today's topic, hardwired for stories. People don't remember facts, benefits, or features. They remember what do they remember is the story and how it made them feel. Everyone loves a story. We are hardwired for it. Whether you're putting your kids to bed and telling them a story, sitting around the dinner table talking about the adventures of the day, watching a movie, or selling a product, our lives revolve around stories. The best stories excite our emotions and provide us with a connection to the storyteller, the environment, or the group listening to the story. Now, our guest today is Michelle Spear. I like her bio is available on the website, and I'll let her tell us a couple of words about herself as well. What I do like to do is tell a couple of words about the relationship I have with the guest speaker every time I bring one to this session. Michelle, she's been an amazing inspiration for me. If I do this webinar and all the other activities that you see me do, being a guest on a podcast, write some articles, do some social media, is because she was there to support me and gave me the confidence that I needed at the right time. I met Michelle through the Toastmasters organization. We're a member of the same club, and for the past 3 or 4 years, she's been a great mentor coach, not to me, but to others. And I've seen the amazing transformation that her knowledge, if it's okay to say knowledge and inspiration, has done to other people, including myself. So I couldn't be more honored to have her as a host, guest host. I guess I'm the host, but you are presenting as the guest host of today's session about our for our How About Some Marketing webinars. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass along and move Michelle into the spotlight.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Emmanuel. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I'm going to ask that if you have any questions, put them in the chat and Emanuel will monitor that for me. And we'll be taking a break halfway through so that Emanuel can do a commercial and whatever else he needs to do. And we'll address some questions then, and then we'll address some more at the end if there are any. There is a beauty to stories and storytelling, and it whisks us from where we are to places unknown, places only imagined, or places that we want to be. The best stories excite our emotions. They build connections, they educate, they advocate, they entertain, and they create a future. And human beings are the only living beings to tell stories that pass on our history. They entertain and they teach. And because of that, we are hardwired for stories. We listen and we learn when a story is being told. Our emotions are stirred and we connect with the storyteller, the hero, and the audience. Don't be afraid to tell your stories, especially in business, because in business, it can make the difference between a sale and a rejection, between a good product launch and a flop, and between keeping loyal employees and customers or having a high turnover. Tonight, we're going to be covering 4 main parts with a lot of information packed into them. So I hope you have a pen and paper ready. So we're going to be looking at the benefits of storytelling, story arcs or plot lines, the 5 stories that you absolutely need to have, and sources for your stories. And as an added bonus, although this is a business marketing webinar, you can use much of the same information for your personal marketing, which may include job interviews or even the dating scene. Not every story you have will fit every situation, but the more stories that you have in your back pocket, the more places you're going to be able to use them. And I'm going to be sharing a couple of QR codes throughout the presentation. So you might want to have something handy to scan them quickly. All right, so let's dive in. The use of hold on, didn't go forward. There we go. Yes, the use of stories can bring many benefits. They can help you create a brand that stands out. It can increase engagement, build both customer and brand loyalty, create a competitive advantage, communicate a message, and humanize the company, which is gonna all increase your sales. But you must offer your audience a journey that engages their emotion so that they will buy into your message and start to share it too. You can make technical and financial presentations exciting through the use of stories. You can sell products and services through stories. You can get a job, ace an interview, make connections, and even re-motivate your team through storytelling. If you stick to stories that appeal to emotions, you're gonna lose half your audience because they're more interested in facts and figures. But if you stick to data, you'll lose those who lead with their heart. So you're going to have to find a way to create a blend of the two. Now, you may be sitting there saying, but Michelle, how do we make a financial report more emotionally appealing? It just doesn't seem if accrual accounting and storytelling would mesh. Well, here's an example. You can try weaving both the emotions and the data into your story like this. In the last financial year, sales dropped by 5%. How can we improve? Well, for over 75 years, since the business began in the garage of our founder, Larry Cooper, we have been listening to our customers and offering the highest quality products that meet their needs. The service that we deliver is exemplary, and each one of you in this room is part of that tradition. You should be proud of this outstanding service. But now we must ask ourselves, what, if we are still providing this exemplary service, has changed in the market, and how can we now meet those needs? So that little snippet brought in the fact that there was a 5% decrease in the sales, So we have the data, we appealed to the emotion, we remotivated, and we encouraged. Data isn't just about numbers. It could be an internal change that has happened. It could be market changes. It could be that we haven't changed at all when the rest of the world has. And in the example I gave, no blame is being dumped on the audience. In fact, they are being recognized and praised for their service. And yet there's still a 5% decrease in sales. By building up the team, they're more likely to search for a reason, knowing that fingers are not being pointed at them. Stories can help focus a problem and remotivate your team. So don't be afraid to try them out. In an article in the Harvard Business Review, Bronwyn Fryer wrote something that just gives me the chills. She said, if you can harness imagination and the principles of a well-told story, then you get people rising to their feet amid thunderous applause instead of yawning and ignoring you. And that's what you want to do. We all know what it's like to be in a presentation that makes you want to cry with mind-numbing boredom. And that's the last thing you want to be responsible for. And you certainly don't want to create the reputation that you are the world's most boring presenter. You want to draw on different experiences and stories, from the founder story to the customer story, and even the employee story. Now, these stories don't necessarily have to be about the company itself. For example, in presenting to a potential partner or clients why this is a good company to work for or work with, you might want to talk about an employee who has a passion for building libraries in underdeveloped countries. The job that they have may allow them the financial means to be able to help with the building. The vacation package is generous enough that they can go for several weeks out of the year and help build these libraries. They're given the time to travel. Or the company actually believes in the cause and helps support them. Now, if the employee's goal and the company's business mesh, that's even better. So if you're in a company that's a publication firm and you have an employee who wants to build libraries, well, that would be a perfect fit, because the publishers and the libraries both use books. So, if you can find connections like that, then it's a good way to help illustrate how well your company can do and what they can do for your employees and customers. And companies that support the dreams of employees build loyalty. I worked for my previous employer for 36 years because it allowed me opportunities to have an impact, make connections, encouraged my social activism, and gave me the financial stability to spend my free time helping others, which was kind of nice. So, what kinds of stories can you use? I came across a study by the University of Vermont's Computational Story Lab. I didn't even know that existed. But they went on to find out just how many types of stories exist. They took 1,737 stories from Project Gutenberg and fed them into the computer. Now, all these stories were written in English and they were all fiction, which means that the number of story types from non-English authors could be even greater. But I've been unable to find a study based on that. Now, the interesting thing is that for all the stories that are out there in the world in English and in fiction, there are only 6 different storylines. And if you really want to develop your storytelling skills, I would suggest that you do some research and look into them. For your business stories, however, we're only going to look at 3. The first storyline is the rags to riches. The movement is continuously upward, leading to happiness or a happily ever after. These stories are popular because we enjoy seeing someone less privileged make their way to a better place through determination, resilience, hard work, and cleverness. This is the classic American immigration tale. The hero begins in poverty or with nothing, and then through hard work, they become a success. And this is a great founder story. The second storyline is Man in the Hole. It's a fall then rise story arc, and it's one of the most common and popular. You see, the hero starts at a high place, then he falls to tragedy, and then he rises again. This story arc shows that we have the strength to overcome obstacles that life throws at us. Now, a really good real life example of this is the 9/11 Twin Towers tragedy in the US. The US was wherever they were, and then all of a sudden they got hit by terrorists, so they went really downhill, and then they rose again after that. So if you can use real life stories, awesome. All right, the last type that we're going to look at is the Cinderella story. It's a rise, then fall, then rise story. And in this story, the hero starts out at a low place, gains some kind of power, faces an insurmountable obstacle, ends up worse than before, and finally claws their way to a positive new beginning. And the best example is the story Cinderella. Now, you may notice that all of these stories have happy endings, and that's because we don't want to scare anyone away with tragedy or with bad news. You want to inspire and persuade them. And you're going to find these storylines all over the place. So pick one and go with it. It could be a series of tragedies. It could be a mix of all of these. Find one that works and just go for it. All right. Now, although just about any story can be used to illustrate key points in a speech or in a presentation, including fables and mythologies and real stories, within business, there are five main stories that you are going to need to develop, and they're going to follow one of the three arcs that we just talked about. So the five stories that you need to have in your back pocket are the founder story, the why story, the vision story, customer successes, and employee successes. So the founder story is the how and why the company was started, or how the brand was created. The company's origin story is most often told by the owner or the founder, but it's important for all employees to know it well. Your marketing or branding team can help create the narrative. This is the cornerstone of your brand messaging. It lists all aspects of the company together and provides a lasting impression. Now, the outdoor equipment and clothing store Patagonia has an incredible founder story, and I encourage you to read it when you have time. So if you want to go ahead and scan that QR code so that you can save it for later, or you can just look it up. The email or the website's there as well. Okay, and if you missed it, we'll go on. We'll do it again later on. But if you're not the founder of the company, see if a founder story has already been written, and make sure that it is written well. We're going to go over some points that need to be included, so just check and make sure it's there. If the story has not been written down, see if you can interview them and then help them write it. If you are the founder, then write your story out, making sure that you hit all the points. So you need to identify the pain point in the market. What was missing? What needs were being unmet? What challenges were you facing as the founder? Then you ask, when did the founder realize that it was going to be up to him or her to fill the gap in the market? And this is the critical point, as it helps the audience realize that it isn't about profit, but that the company was created to serve. It also lets the audience know what finally inspired the founder to do whatever it took to get him to make it all happen. The third point is the journey. You want to describe the building of the company, the times you were turned down for financial help, investors pulling out, people who didn't believe in you, or your vision, or your abilities. And speak about overcoming those challenges. Highlight your hard work, your dedication, and effort. And this is a good spot to mention and illustrate the values on which the company is actually built. And some values you should highlight may include vision, the ability to think and plan the future with imagination and wisdom; resilience, the ability to bounce back; adaptability, being able to adjust to new conditions; leadership, the ability to influence and inspire others towards a common purpose or goal; passion, a deep commitment and enthusiasm for the venture; problem solving, the capability to identify and solve complex problems; integrity, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles; and market knowledge, understanding of the industry and the needs of your customers. You have to include your values because that's what people will be looking for. And the last point is to include the current impact your company is having on the market or the community, because this is going to demonstrate your success, your excitement, and your joy that you have in fulfilling the needs of others. The founder story can be used on your website, in your marketing content, at speaking engagements, in the recruiting process, or webinars and podcasts. Don't be shy about pointing out obstacles that you had to overcome. Conflict is always good, and it's good at creating interest and an engaging story. So here's an example of a founder story that includes community impact, effort, innovation, resilience, and integrity. And you may learn a little bit of history while we're at it. All right. Timothy Eaton was born in Ireland in 1834. Just 10 years later, the Great Famine struck Ireland, killing over 1 million people. And at the age of 20, during the Great Famine, he found himself sailing across the ocean to Canada, where he settled in Ontario. Getting his brothers to help finance him, he set up a bakery business, which went under in just a few months. But he kept pushing forward and managed to open a dry goods store. Then 4 years later, he purchased an existing dry goods store and haberdashery in Toronto. When the Second World War struck, the Eaton's employees answered the call of duty and sent 3,000 men to fight on the front lines. Now, Eaton's continued to pay the wages of the soldiers so that their families wouldn't starve. That's unheard of. They took pictures of each employee that were proudly displayed at the Toronto store during the war. And by the end of the war, the Timothy Eaton Company Limited stretched from coast to coast and employed over 70,000 people. And in 1905, it hosted the very first Santa Claus parade in Toronto. Now, there's another little piece of history that you may not know. When the Irish started emigrating and coming to Toronto, they were riddled with typhus. They were poor and malnourished. Torontonians did not want them here. They didn't want sick, poor, uneducated people in their town. They were barred from housing and from getting jobs. They were ostracized. Stores and offices had signs in the windows saying, "Irish need not apply." All except for the Timothy Eaton Company. The store became known for hiring Irish workers and giving them the opportunity to support themselves and their families. In fact, my Irish grandmother was one of the lucky ones to get a job with Eaton's. Now, Timothy Eaton introduced several groundbreaking, unheard of retail practices that are now a normal part of doing business. The first was that all goods had one price and that customers had to pay in cash. Prior to this, you could haggle and use store credit which put the store in jeopardy of not being paid back, which was financially risky. And one price also made it fair for all the customers who didn't need to rely on their haggling skills. The second innovation included a money-back guarantee, which was the cornerstone of business with Eaton's. The third groundbreaking innovation was the mail order catalog. It reached thousands of small towns and communities that just didn't have access to these large stores. Just about anything and everything could be purchased from Eaton's. Milking machines for the cows, furniture, clothing, milling machines. When the catalog became out of date, the pages could then be used in the outhouse. Now, all of these innovations are now standard in retail, but before Timothy Eaton introduced them, they didn't exist anywhere. Having made community involvement part of the business on such a large scale was unheard of. Talk about impact. And unfortunately, their doors have now closed, but their name and their legacy still lives on. Sometimes you need to let drama pour out. Sometimes you need to expose dirty laundry. Difficulties, failures, struggles need to be brought out so that you can show how they were overcome. Positive stories without hardships just don't ring true to the listener and they lose interest. There's never a story where black and white are clearly divided and where the good guy isn't occasionally bad and where the bad guy isn't occasionally good. Revealing the ugly, dark side shows you as truthful, vulnerable, and willing to overcome that darkness. The truth is appreciated, and dealing with struggles with honesty gives your audience energy and ensures that they will remember the story. Founder stories that expose the darker side as a challenge to overcome are hard to find, but are the stories that are remembered the best. And I believe now Emanuel is going to take us through a commercial break.
Yeah, but it's on your presentation, so you can keep sharing your screen and just move on to the next slide.
You
Or
don't need a commercial?
I need, but I don't need to share it. You can share it. It's on the same
Oh,
presentation.
is it? Okay.
Yes,
Let me see. Sorry. Oh, I get back to this.
I put it there while you
Okay.
are, of course, presenting.
I share. Okay, next screen.
And one more.
Oh, so you put it after. Okay.
Ah,
No,
no. Okay, so
nope.
it's not updating. Not updating. Okay, then
Stop sharing.
hmm, I'm gonna be sharing right now. Just a second.
Uh,
I made it a habit of introducing the next webinar in this one, and I'll ask everybody to take a second and entire screen, and this one to take a second and go to howaboutsomemarketing.com to register for the upcoming webinar, which happens on March 28th, 2024. So the last day of each month, essentially. This you can mark it in your calendar from now on the last day of each month at 7 p.m. EST. You have a How About Some Marketing session webinar. And next month, I have again a very special guest, Dan Couvret, a notable entrepreneur and business development consultant with extensive experience in guiding businesses to success. This section will focus on critical importance of branding in business strategy, offering insights on how to effectively brand your business strategy from the outset and make in fact impactful adjustments to an existing brand. So basically, properly branding your business can set you up for success. And the subtitle is Not Properly Branding Your Business Will Set You Up for Failure. I'm going to drop the link for registering to this event in the chat box. And of course, for those who are watching the recording, there's going to be a link to the description. But for the safest way to ensure you're not missing out is to actually subscribe to the newsletter that you can find at, you guessed it, howaboutsomemarketing.com. Before passing along the virtual microphone back to Michelle, if there are any questions, please put them either in the chat where I just drop the link to the next event, or in the Q&A section where you can post some questions anonymously. So Michelle, we might have some anonymous questions as well. That said, I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to pass along to Michelle because it's amazing. It's so interesting. I can't wait to see what's coming.
All right, thank you, Emanuel. Start sharing again. All righty. So the second story that we're going to look at is the why story. And this is where it gets down to the nitty-gritty. This story shows your vulnerability. It's honest and can be raw, disturbing, or encouraging. Sometimes the founder just wants to make money. Sometimes they want to pursue a passion, challenge the status quo, find balance, or create additional sources of income. But others have a different purpose. Social entrepreneurs aren't driven by making money for money's sake, but by a desire to create a better world. The money that they use can be used for, or the money that they make can be used for community improvement, social revolutions, or not-for-profits. Purchasing with a purpose is actually the focus of the majority of shoppers these days. So it's important for companies to let their customers know the why behind the story. But it's important not to jump on the bandwagon of every social issue that is the flavor of the month, but to be truly passionate and very specific about your why, and then stick to it. It's next to impossible to find the real why stories in print. You may hear them at conferences and presentations and podcasts, but rarely will you see them on a company website because they can be so personal. It's also difficult to find the why story for older, more established companies like Timothy Eaton. And that's why the why story helps to shape your vision and your vision story. So although you may not have to share it, you got to be really crystal clear on what it is. Because without the vision story, you can't create your vision statement. And because they're hard to find, as an example, I'd like to share my why story with you if you don't mind. So ever since I was little, I had a fear of being a bag lady, being homeless and living on the streets. I have no idea where that came from because I did not grow up in poverty. But I did grow up hearing stories of women whose husbands left them or they died. There were no pensions and there was no nest egg. And because they had been stay-at-home moms and wives, they had not been working and not paying into CPP and were therefore ineligible for social assistance except for old age security. And the stories I had heard had these women ending up in shelters, eating cat food, or living on the streets, unable to make ends meet. And I decided at a really, really young age, 6 or 7, that I wasn't going to be dependent on anybody for anything. And so I worked hard. But even in the 80s and 90s, it was still a man's world. And the differences between the wages that men got and women got was huge, far bigger than they are now. And so it was always a struggle. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I was able to finally put this fear to rest. But as I got older, I witnessed more and more poverty and learned that the most successful way for a family to escape poverty was for the women to be trained, educated, and given a hands up. A family is as strong as the mother, who tends to be the primary caregiver and nurturer. If she is enabled and empowered, change can happen. I had feared living in poverty for so long that I now have a burning need to help these women break the cycle of poverty, giving their children a fighting chance so that they didn't have to live in poverty when they became adults. So my why drives my vision. And that's the next story type that we're going to look at. The vision story inspires. It excites the imagination. Numbers and dates are the language of goals and objectives, but vision stories persuade. There are mission statements and there are vision statements, but a vision story embraces emotion and is the bedrock of business sustainability. In a 2023 article, Paul Segredo pointed out that the function of visions are to preserve the business culture, which is critical in maintaining the business identity's values. It increases employee loyalty and builds customer trust. Connection with that vision and seeing the vision played out in real time is huge. It needs to be dynamic and must evolve with the changing landscape of the industry. Your vision story helps you set your short and medium goals, while your long-term goals are tied to your mission statement. The vision story needs to go beyond profits. If you don't know what you're fighting for, then why are you fighting? If you don't know why you are keeping the business running, then why are you keeping the business running? You don't want your vision to be a beginning to end statement or story, but a tale that is filled with struggle and hope. You want to inspire and persuade people that your vision is without limits. It could be a personal vision story, a personal vision story within the company, or a company vision story. When you're working on it, make sure that you clearly state the end goal of your vision and clearly explain the strategies that you're going to be using to reach that goal. When putting your story together, be authentic, clear, creative, focused, and most of all, write it down. You will be telling this story many times, so put it on paper so that it stays consistent and so that there is a written archive for future generations. The story that you tell must be specific. You must consider all the details, and it needs to be a story and not a statement. Imagine the sights and sounds of your vision. How does it feel? What does it look like? In fact, use all of your senses. This is a great place to use adjectives, those lovely words that you use to describe things. Using descriptors makes the story come alive. It's the difference between a black and white line drawing and a painting in a gallery. If you don't believe the vision, you can't expect others to. And if you can't make it believable by drawing on the senses, then you've already lost your audience. It must be passionate and engaging, truthful and inspiring. You want to persuade people to join you in your quest. You want to ensure that you have that buy-in, that you will be supported, and that people are breaking down the door to help you make your vision a reality. It's rare that you're going to see the vision story in print. What you'll see instead is the vision statement. And the vision statement is the vision story condensed into a sentence or two. The vision statement is for the public. The vision story is for the leadership, the managers, the board of directors, the investors, and others who would benefit from knowing the whole truth. It also serves as a reminder to you of what you see for the company. So you heard my why story, and because it's hard to find the vision stories, I'm going to share mine with you once again. Bear with me. So my coaching practice allows me to have an impact. Partnering with various social services, women in poverty will have the opportunity to apply for a better life. For every $15,000 of profit, I can sponsor one woman who is currently living in poverty to become a life, health, or business coach. I will cover her education needs from her coaching qualifications all the way through to getting her formally recognized international credentials. A coaching career will allow her to dictate and dedicate her time spent with her family while creating a level of income that will pull her out of poverty through her hard work, ensuring that the needs of her family will be met. And if the graduates give back to the program, the sponsorship funds will grow and we will be able to help more and more women each year, increasing their well-being and providing a more secure future. So that's my vision story. But my vision statement, which comes from that, is much shorter. And it says, my vision is to break the cycle of poverty by providing women with the opportunity to thrive through coaching. So the vision statement is short and direct and to the point, but you might be saying, well, how are you going to do that? What does that mean? And that's where the vision story comes in. All right. So make sure that you have your vision story written down, because there's more to the vision story than just the statement. So you need to know what it is, because at some point you will be asked. The fourth story type that you're going to need is the customer success story. And that can be used to show other customers how the products or services they purchased has made a difference to their efficiency, safety, working conditions, the overall company success, no matter how that's defined. And you can get these through testimonials, references, or reviews. The last story type that we're going to need is the employee success story. And these are great for recruiting, but they can be also used to demonstrate how the company is involved in community activities, such as sponsoring fundraising events, philanthropic endeavors, or social activism. Actively ask your employees for their stories. And you can use all of these stories for company marketing, personal marketing, on dates, fundraising for charity, networking events, or when making appeals for support or finances. Now, you may be sitting there asking yourself if you really need to know all these stories, if you aren't in sales, or you're the founder, or in marketing, or in public relations. The answer is yes. Yes, you do. Because you never know when you're going to be called on to give a presentation. You never know when you may be required to encourage an employee or a team member, onboard an employee, or if somebody just asks you about the company during a dinner party. You need to be prepared at all times. I know a man who was often asked to speak at different functions, conferences, business meetings, service clubs, BIAs. And because the setting for each speech was unique, no single speech was going to fit the bill. So he kept a list of stories in his wallet. He set up a table that had columns for the story title, the key learnings or focus points, and a call to action, if appropriate. And using this simple sheet, he was able to insert the appropriate story into whatever speech he had to make, very often on the spot. The stories don't have to be about the company at all times. You may be tasked to address a certain behavior problem that's showing up, or you want to motivate or encourage. Stories can come just about from anywhere. On the slide, the nails is a great story about a kid who gets angry all the time and he has to pound nails into the fence, and when he finally stopped pounding the nails in, he had to pull them out, and he learned that even though the nails are taken out, it still leaves holes in the wood, and those are like the lasting wounds. The lion is an African fable, and then of course the tortoise and the hare. But then there's the business stories below that. So the nice thing is he was able to step in as an emergency speaker so often that people began to learn that they could count on him. And because that happened, he ended up giving up his day job because he was booked to speak so many times, and he just changed careers. A bit of pre-planning can get you far. However, you need to know your stories backwards and forwards. They must be practiced regularly so that they sound natural. And a good place to practice and develop your skills is at Toastmasters. It's a worldwide organization that lets you develop your speaking and leadership skills. And if you're not already in Toastmasters, I encourage you to check them out. All right, so now we're moving into sources for your stories. Where do we get them? Sometimes it might take some brainstorming, while other stories are obvious. And I encourage you to put your ideas into the chat as I continue so that we can take a look at them afterwards. Some stories may not have anything to do with the business itself, but may illustrate a point you're trying to make, or form a comparison or draw a conclusion. Some stories will come from the founder or founders, and if possible, sit down with them and work on the story. Make sure that you send them a final copy before you post it anywhere and get their approval on it. Stories also come from your employees. Ask how they came to find out about the business. Ask why they love working for the company. Ask why they love their customers. Ask what they love about the brand. Ask what they feel is the biggest contribution to the success of the company. Ask what their goal is and how the company can help them or has helped them achieve it. And then you can ask your customers all kinds of questions too. Ask what their pain point was before you solved their problem. Ask what their favorite part of working with you is. Ask what your company means to them. And then ask what their company means to them. Ask what you did to make the experience great. Ask how you could have gone above and beyond. Ask what their goal is and how you can help them achieve it. Ask what milestones your service or product has helped them reach. And then, of course, there's the customer surveys and feedback forms and testimonials. Once you hear a good story, you want to write it down. And there is a simple formula to use, whether the story is from an employee or a customer. So the first thing is to describe the problem, the challenge, or the pain point that the customer or employee was facing. You have to set a context. Then you're going to explain how your product or service or the company itself addressed their needs. You can highlight certain features, programs, departments, whatever was particularly valuable. Then you want to detail the results the customer or employee experienced after using the product or service or receiving help from the company. And this is where you want to start using your qualitative and quantitative data. Because remember, you can't just appeal to emotion, you also have to include the nitty-gritty details. Lastly, you're going to capture the emotional journey. What did the customer or the employee feel? Compare how they felt before and after using the product or solution or overcoming the challenge. And this is going to bring resolution and bring closure to the story. Be sure to get permission from the customers or the employees to use their stories if you are writing and editing them. Some may say yes, but not allow you to mention the name of the company or the person involved. Respect their wishes, work within their guidelines. Also be sure to have them approve the final copy before it's posted anywhere, because you do not want to run into any legal issues. Many customers will provide a testimonial or review on your website. Absolutely use those. But if there's a really good story, then by all means approach them and ask them if you can work with them to craft a really good story. And how you use any of these stories is only limited by your imagination. Videos, articles, blogs, websites, social media, and so much more. Now, here's the other thing. Be sure to include a call to action at the end by offering to solve that problem for others, and then give them the information necessary to contact you. Don't leave it loose and flying around the air. Okay, so we have covered a lot of information, and there's so much more that we can discuss, but I really want to be respectful of your time because I know we have 7 minutes. So as a recap, I shared the benefits of storytelling with you. We've briefly looked at the 3 plot lines or story arcs: Rags to Riches, Man in the Hole, and Cinderella. I've outlined the 5 stories that you need to have in your back pocket: the founder story, the why story, the vision story, customer and employee success stories. And then we discussed where you can source those stories. And then finally, we covered how to capture the stories of your customers and employees. It's a lot of information. You have a whole library of stories inside of you available to you. And I encourage you to use your stories to create empathy and to strengthen connections. Storytelling is the most powerful and oldest tool to affect change in society and will help you bring out the importance of issues that matter most to you. Stories can help us cope, help us to remember and imagine, solve problems, and try on solutions. They engage our attention and they help us understand one another. They will help us sell products and services and leave a lasting impression of your company. Stories make us human, and we are all hardwired for stories. We listen and we learn when a story is being told. Our emotions are stirred, and we connect with the storyteller, the hero, and the audience. Don't be afraid to tell your stories. I'd like to thank Emanuel for giving me this opportunity to share my love of storytelling and the practical side of it. And I'd like to thank each of you for sticking with me. And if you're interested in building your library and would like coaching, please reach out to me and let's talk. You can use my QR code there and we can connect in a variety of ways and see what works best. And I thank you so very much. And Emanuel, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Thank you, Michelle, but not so fast because we do have a couple of questions here.
Hey,
Answer.
okay.
So actually, you answered a few of them from the through from the last couple of slides. But what can be key elements of a compelling business story? What would you say it's about blending a why story with a vision story? And how can one articulate a vision story when not too sure about the story behind the company?
Okay, all good questions. And for the more established companies, it is going to be harder to find that vision story. So what you can do is find out what the current vision of the management is and start from there. Because hopefully it's somehow tied to the original vision and it's been carried on. But talk to the folks in charge to find out what their business vision is for the company, and make sure that you have the emotion, make sure that you have um, the data. Take people on a journey, talk about their the obstacles that they've had to overcome, the challenges that they've had to face. We talked about that at the beginning when we were talking about the founder story. So a compelling business story can also be written like a founder story, and you can throw in absolutely a bit of the why and a bit of the vision. You can Not everything has to be a separate story. You can combine a lot of it and make a really compelling story. But you need to have the basics for each of the story types first. Does that help?
I hope so. And one more note, not really a question, really appreciate your talk. It was spot on. I work as a therapist, not me. And stories I'm reading. And stories are actually a big part of the job. I use them to help clients see things differently and make positive shifts in their lives. Metaphors are especially handy for this. Thanks again for sharing your thoughts on such important topic.
Not a problem. Thank you.
That being said, Michelle, any final remarks? I don't see any other questions or comments in the chat, so I think we're going to leave it at that. We're close to 1 hour mark. So any last thoughts, notes?
I really encourage you carry around a notebook or use your phone or whatever you need to do and capture stories on a daily basis. Things that just catch your attention, things that you've learned, events that you see, whatever it is, just start making a list and write out the stories that are happening every day, because those are the things that people connect with. It's not the really outlandish stories, but it's the ones that are real, that have challenges, that have struggle, and fighting to overcome things.
That's it. Thank you so much, Michelle. I'd like to, let me find out here. One more start the spotlight on me. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much, everyone who attended or watched the recording of this webinar. I like to remind one more time to register for the upcoming webinar that's happening the last Thursday of March, March 28th, starting 7 p.m. EST. Properly branding your business can set you up for success. Not properly branding your business will set you up for failure. That being said, you can sign up and register at howaboutsomemarketing.com, and to make sure you're not missing anything else, sign up for the newsletter as well. That being said, How About Marketing founder and your host today, Emanuel Petrescu, me, is saying have a pleasant evening and see you next month.